Hi guys, it's Nicole, and today I am sharing another scrapbook process featuring the Scraproom Flavors of the Month kit. This is from the September 2021 Flavors of the Month, specifically the Bella Blvd You Are My Sunshine kit. I purposely saved this one for last. You guys are seeing it second out of 3 process videos, but I worked on it last. Sometimes I will do this where the kit that is sort of the most exciting to me, I will save it for the last process that I do and kind of give myself some extra time to sort of think about the products and come up with a plan. So this part I always leave in real time so that you guys can get a pretty good look at the photos, or not the photos, the papers, and kind of see what all comes in the kit. Now again, the Flavors of the Month kit is a little bit different than other kit clubs. You're basically getting a sampling of 4 newer collections, and you've got enough product that if you want to do a double page layout, you're going to have a well-balanced double page layout. If you choose not to do a double page layout, obviously you can do 2, 3, 4 single page layouts with the stuff that comes just in the main kit. I always put photos at the very beginning of the video showing the full kit, and then the embellishment add-on kit and the pattern paper add-on kit. Most months I get both of those, but I do try to stick to just the basic kit because I do want to show you guys kind of like an accurate representation of what to expect if you only subscribe to the Flavors of the Month kit. So here I'm showing the 2 papers that came in the pattern paper add-on. I did not use them today. And then this piece is in the embellishment add-on kit. And I did go ahead and pull this out because this was kind of the jumping off point for me as far as what I wanted to do. So for my layout, I basically went through my phone and grabbed a bunch of random photos from this summer, being 2021. I did grab some dies that I was thinking about potentially using, and basically I just want to create a double page layout featuring a bunch of different photos spanning summer at our local water park. I think this is the 3rd year that I've done season passes, and because my kids are older, they're not little, so that we're not doing like play dates, we're not going and doing like museums and a bunch of other stuff in the summer. This is kind of like, I just get season passes. We go twice a week, and that's kind of our out of the house entertainment. So I came up with a plan that when I saw the rainbow paper, I wanted to make kind of like rainbow waves and tuck my photos into it. And I wasn't thinking that by the time I cut down each of these pieces that it's not going to span the 12 inches. So my plan kind of gets changed up along the way. But I took these border dies from Honeybee Stamps and just kind of went with it. I did kind of build the waves as I went along and just kind of taped them together just to make them not have the exact same shape for each row, if that makes any sense. And then because the border dies are marketed for slimline cards, I want to say they're about 8 inches long. So I just cut an 8-inch section, move it down, rotate it, grab there's 2 of them, mixed and matched, and just kind of lined them up, ran it back through, and I did it for each of the stripes. And then my photos, I very loosely sized them. They're everything from 2 by 3 inches to 2.5 by 2.5 to I think 1.75 by 2.75. Like, I just kind of went with sizes that I knew were going to be small enough. And then what I do is in Photoshop, I open up a 12 by 12 blank document, kind of. And after I crop my photos, I drag and drop them into that document to make sure that the sizing is where I want them to be. And I kind of arrange them. And I kind of do almost like a digital dry run of just the photos. After I trimmed all my photos, I took some white distress paint and just like an ink blending foam tool, and I inked the edges of my photos. Basically, I didn't want to go through the time, the effort, and the product to matte them with white cardstock. So this is kind of like a cheater method. And as I'm going along, I'm kind of leaning into this chaotic vibe or feel, if you will. And I say that because it's mostly the fact that my photos are spanning 3 or 4 months. They're kind of all over the place. Some are underwater, some are food related, some are just kind of relaxing. Like, to me, my mind kind of just goes with chaos with stuff like that. So some of the design things that I choose kind of lean that way as well. Now, for this summer title, again, I am going to do kind of like I did with last month's kit. I'm just going to trace around it and cut it. The instructions are printed on that sheet on the left. They kind of have like a different method. For the photos, I just took a white gel pen to draw around it because I knew that I'd be able to see it a little bit better than a regular pen. And I basically, again, I just kind of guessed sizing on 3 of my photos and printed them out. And then I held the frame over the 3 photos and kind of figured out which ones were going to fit the best. And one of them I actually ended up switching over to a butterfly just because it had a little bit bigger of an area, and I didn't want my daughter's face getting cut off with like the middle of a letter. And then anything that was kind of peeking out, I just either trimmed it with an X-Acto knife, or if I could kind of get my scissors underneath it, that was kind of my method. So again, I'm going to pop a photo behind this S, and probably not the best letter to pick to put a photo behind it, but again, it just kind of worked out. And to me, it was an easy way to get photos onto the left page and still kind of have it be somewhat balanced. So here I've backed the other 3 letters with pattern papers. Again, these are from the main kit. And then I had all these leftover pieces from when I die cut those rainbow stripes. So going back to that chaos theory, I was like, let's carry it over into one of the letters. Like, let's bring over the design element that's happening on the right. Let's bring it over into the left. And that's pretty much what I did. So I took all these little tiny scraps and I backed the letter E with them. And at first I was questioning my decision. In the end, I absolutely love it. I think it was a good, like, random thought that I kind of had. And at the end of the layout, I had like teeny tiny scraps of this striped paper. So it did feel good to kind of use up a whole sheet of paper in a creative way and kind of spread out across the layout and not just be like a 12 by 12 piece of paper just kind of stuck down on the layout. This was kind of the moment when I was like, okay, I think my creative process is kind of coming back. I'm getting like lots of ideas. And I had mentioned in previous videos that sometimes when I take a break from creating anything, the first couple layouts back are very simple, and then it transitions into things like this. And I'm also like really sinking into wanting to get back into using things like dyes and stamps and inks and things that are more geared towards card making, because I do buy my supplies that are, say, marketed for card making. I pick things that I know I can use them on a scrapbook page, if that makes sense, hopefully. Here I also backed the other butterfly with all of those scraps so that I kind of had 3 areas on the layout with those like rainbow waves. I used the butterfly to match up Lawn Fawn inks. I tend to go with ink cubes because of the price point, storing them, and I find it easier and again, a little bit more budget friendly to get like the whole collection from a manufacturer. It's just easier for me in my wallet to do the ink cubes, especially for the amount that I use them for. So I went through and I kind of found an ink pad to represent each of the stripes on that pattern paper. And then I grabbed 3 different cloud stencils. Pretty much this is, I think, the only 3 I have. 2 of them are from My Favorite Things. One is kind of like a larger cloud shape, and then the other one, I'm pretty sure, is called Mini Clouds. And then the third one that I have is from Lawn Fawn, and it's got a good mix of like kind of big bumps and little bumps. And basically, I am just going to go through and kind of mix up the stencils. So there you could see how I had loosely kind of taped my rainbow kind of like waves together. And I'm trying to figure out how far down do I need to stencil this background. Now, initially I was thinking that I was just going to do blue clouds above those rainbow waves and kind of have it be almost like a loose interpretation of a scene where the rainbow waves are kind of like the pool and the photos are kind of like the people bobbing up and down in the pool. I did shift gears a little bit because I knew that I needed to figure out a plan for the left page. The only thing up until this point that I knew was going to be on the left page was that large title piece. But I wasn't really wanting to do something with the pattern papers. It felt like if I pulled in the other 2 pattern papers and tried to come up with a way of putting them behind the title, that they would have felt just too different, I guess is the way that I would describe it. So I ultimately decided that I was going to go ahead and just do this cloud stenciling on the whole sheet for the left side. But I also didn't want to do all blue clouds. So this was about the point when I was like, you know what? Let's just go for it. Let's do rainbow clouds. And because I started with blue, it kind of made sense to me to do almost reverse rainbow order of what I had going on with the die cut waves. So the die cut waves are coming up from the bottom of the paper in one order of the rainbow, and then my clouds are going down the page in the reverse order. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. And knowing that I'm going to do the full rainbow on the left page, I kind of had to eyeball the spacing of each kind of row of clouds for the right, because I knew that I didn't need to go all the way down, but I did want them to somewhat match up in the middle as far as the colors. Hopefully that makes sense. Like, I didn't want it to be like the left side was too spaced out or too scrunched up and just look weird next to the right. So I stenciled probably about 3 inches worth of the top. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start building my layout from the bottom up, and then I can kind of gauge a little bit better how far down I need to continue going with these clouds. And at this point, I'm trying to find everything that's sort of underneath my glass mat. And I pretty much only put adhesive kind of minimal areas, like barely along the bottom edge and maybe a dot or 2 of glue on each side. Because I need the space between the waves to be able to tuck my photos. And I know that if things are just barely attached, when I get completely done, I can just take my glue and kind of squeeze it underneath everything and secure everything at the end. I'm not going to worry about having everything be super secure at this point. And I'm not even going to make sure that my waves are completely covered behind each other because of the photos blocking it. So like this one that I'm putting here, there is going to be a slight gap And I'm okay with that because my photos are going to block it. And this way I can actually see more of that paper. So I just kind of went line by line, stripe by stripe. And like I said, I'm only attaching barely to the bottom because at this point, I'm not sure which waves I'm going to tuck my photos behind. So I want to make sure that any of them are going to kind of be open and allow me to be able to put something in there. And I am referencing my kind of digital dry run in Photoshop. I left it open on my computer so that I could kind of look at it and figure out photo placement and make sure that I had enough room for all of them. Because I ended up with, I can't think of how many photos I ended up with. Oh, wait, hold on. So I ended up with 3 on the left and 12 on the right. So 15 photos spread out on a double page layout with a whole bunch of techniques and visual interest going on, to me is a win-win. So like I said, I kind of had this crazy idea in my head of what I wanted the end result to look like. And I just kind of had to make different adjustments and kind of shift how I was going to implement that as I went along. Now, this is probably a bad example of something to do with the kit, but at the same time, I wanted to have fun with it. And I kind of really wanted to show how you can take basic supplies like stencils and inks and dyes and kind of go really far outside the box with these kits. So hopefully that is kind of somewhat translated in this video. And this video is already pretty long and I'm still only on the right page. But I didn't want to cut out a lot of the stuff that did take me a while. Like, it took me a while to kind of plan everything out. It took me a while sort of adjusting different elements over and over and over again. But I enjoyed the process. I wasn't in a rush to finish. I wasn't like, oh, let's just get it done. Like, let's just, slap some stuff down here. It was one of those things where I was in the mood to creatively come up with something different and out of the box, and at the same time use techniques and supplies that I enjoy and that I love, especially at the moment. So right now, I'm kind of sitting in this place where I'm wanting to pull in supplies that are marketed for card making more and more and more into my layouts. And I'm just going to kind of go with it. If it's not for you, 100% okay. And if you're like me and you enjoy kind of pulling in stencils and inks and dyes and stamps and stuff like that in your layouts, let me know down below. I sometimes question if it's something that I should share more on my channel. I know a lot of people get upset when, say, they've watched somebody for years for scrapbooking content and then they sort of stop and they move over into like card making or quilting or sewing or they kind of shift their creative outlet and what they choose to share on their channel. I'm going to continue to be me and share the things that I like, but I also like to know what you guys like. If you guys pull in stuff like this in your layouts, or if you've wanted to, but you're just not really sure how, or you don't do it in your own layouts, but you enjoy watching people do it on their layouts, like that kind of thing. Like, mixed media is not for me, but I love watching process videos, even when there's mixed media in them, because I find it fascinating that they start out with something that I'm like, where are we going? And at the end, they've got this amazing creative layout. It's not something that I would scrap lift or I would be influenced to do mixed media myself, but I enjoy watching their process. I did cut out a lot of inking this full sheet, mostly just because it took a while. I basically did 2, sometimes 3 rows of clouds per color of ink pad that I had pulled out, so that it was kind of like a bigger transition between colors, if that makes sense. And I knew that I was going to use summer in a way to get my title across and add like thickers or something, basically just to convey that this was our summer spent at this particular water park. I found these phrases, which I think are branded by Thickers, in my stash. So I pulled this one that said memories. I was like, good, perfect. It's even tone on tone because it's going to land in the pink clouds. I printed my journaling on this old My Mind's Eye tag. I have a video up on my channel going slower and more in depth on how I print my journaling on cards like that. If you're interested, I'll put it in the eye above and I'll link it below. And then I just kind of took all the other embellishments that came in the main kit and just kind of spread them out all over the place, kind of going along with that chaotic, fun, messy vibe. And then this little like area between the 2 photos was kind of bugging me. And I looked over at the second sheet of phrases and I saw this one that said fun in the sun. And I was like, ooh, I bet if I stacked it, it would probably fit in here. So I just kind of decided to go with that. Because I use D-ring albums, this is gonna kind of look like not a cohesive double page layout. So like looking at my sample here, normally I hate having like a harsh edge like that right at the middle of my layout, but it's gonna go in a D-ring album and it's just conveying a broader time frame. So I'm okay with it kind of being a loose double page, but also being 2 single pages that cohesively work together. So thank you for joining me on this longer video. I hope you enjoyed the process. Leave me any questions down below and I'll talk to you guys later.